Did you know that the acceptance rate for the IITs is 0.5% and for Harvard it's 5%? So does that mean that it's easier to get into Harvard than the IITs? Let's talk about that. Alright guys, so we are back with a different type of video, and for those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Saloni and I am a biomedical engineer currently working in upstate New York. And in this video, I want to compare the Indian IITs, the prestigious colleges, versus the Ivy League Harvard. Now, I myself gave the IIT exam and failed miserably. I studied for it like pretty seriously, guys, like in my grade 12, and I wrote the test. I didn't even pass the first round, the IIT JEE mains. And I felt miserable, pretty much worthless. But there was something better waiting for me, because I did end up studying biomedical engineering from Harvard and Cornell, two Ivy League colleges. And in this video, I want to compare the world famous Harvard versus, our Indian IITs, and answer questions like acceptance rate, how tough the admission process is. And towards the end of this video, I want to answer the big question: which one is more difficult to get in? The first comparison that we're going to do is the acceptance rate. Now, over 20 lakh students each year write the IIT JEE exam, and this number is increasing every year, all for the 16,234 seats that are spread among 23 IITs all over India. And that is a 0.5% acceptance rate, which means that 1 out of every 200 students gets in. No pressure, right? Now, when it comes to Harvard in 2022, the acceptance rate was at an all-time low of 4.59%. 42,749 students applied for just under 2,000 seats. And I know that, listening to these stats, like a 4.6% acceptance rate sounds like a relief compared to the IITs. But the thing to remember is that the total number of students that did apply to Harvard and that do each year are significantly lower when compared to the 20 lakh that apply to the IITs. And that plays a big factor in why IITs have such a low acceptance rate and why it's so competitive to get in. So the next question that comes up to my mind is, what does the admission process for each of these institutions look like? Now, when it comes to the IITs, I feel like it's a pretty straightforward process in terms of the admission. You have an entrance test, which is divided into two parts: the IIT JEE mains and the IIT JEE advanced exam. And it's a pass or fail test. Now, there is no fixed cutoff each year, but it basically just depends on how the students perform. The first exam, which is the IIT JEE, for those of you that don't know this exam, is out of 300 total marks, and the second exam is out of 366 marks. Now, once you clear the first one, you go on to the second one. Once you clear that, you get a seat into one of the 23 IITs. And that's pretty much about it. Simple, right? I mean, just keeping the whole competition side apart from the exam itself, there's nothing more that goes into the admission process. You don't have to make a list of extracurricular activities or write essays or collect letters of recommendations. None of that. This test solely depends whether you get into the college or not. Now, I'm personally not really a big fan of this method, just because a test-taking method solely to decide whether a student is competent enough to get into a college doesn't seem like a fair approach. Me personally, I'm not a good test taker, especially when it's such a stressful time test, and I feel like it doesn't take into consideration the personality of the student and just like a wholesome profile to evaluate how that student would perform, later on in his or her career. But on the other hand, if you look at how Harvard kind of deals with things, you have things like essays, extracurricular activities, honors and achievements, supplemental essays, just basically trying to gauge a student's personality in addition to high school marks, SATs, ACTs, and all this contributes to Harvard's decision on whether a student is accepted or not. Now, with these differences in the admission for both institutions, the admission cycle happens once every year, and that's pretty much common for Harvard as well as the IITs. But if you are a good test taker, IIT might be the right path for you. However, if you're looking at a more wholesome profile building, you're into extracurricular activities, you really want to strengthen an overall aspect of your profile, giving Harvard a shot isn't a bad idea. Now, this is not to say that if somebody who is a good test taker shouldn't be applying to Harvard. That's not what I mean at all. But, just trying to judge whether you should be applying to one or the other. And now this brings me to my second point, which is that I personally, and this is just my personal recommendation, would not ask a student to apply to both universities at the same time. Now, this is because, as you probably noticed, the admission and application process for both IITs as well as Harvard are different. And this is because they're in different countries. One is in the US, the other one is in India. And since they are two different education systems, if you try to apply in the same admission cycle to both universities, you wouldn't be able to give in all of your 100% efforts in either trying to study and clear that IIT exam or create a profile and do everything that it takes to get into Harvard. So try to decide and pick one, which is why this video is the right thing for you guys to do, so that you can get a clear understanding and differentiate between the two of these colleges. So let's move on to the next factor. Comparison number 3 is research infrastructure, environment, and just the overall surroundings of each university. Now, this is not taking a shot at anyone who goes to IIT, who's an alumni, or anyone, who dreams of going into IIT. I personally think that Harvard really wins this round because of the facilities, the professors, and just like the push and support that you get to carry out practical application-based research. Not to mention, they spend a ton of money in cutting-edge projects to make sure that students are involved in these projects, and just like innovation in general is something that's really being pushed. And when I went to Harvard, I remember that on day one, we didn't have any books or theory to understand what was microfluidics, and we did not start from the basics. At this point, since we already had a significant amount of classroom learning, our goal was to understand the experimental protocol and just start fabricating devices. The whole teaching method was built around read it up, learn, make mistakes, recover from those mistakes, fix what you can, and then try again. And I personally would have made hundreds of devices before I could continuously and confidently make some really cool ones, right? And that was the whole point. And I feel like this nature of teaching is something that is different in the US and in India. The last comparison that we're going to do is the tuition fee and scholarships. Now let's talk about Harvard first. It clearly states on their website that they provide financial aid to every need-based student. Now what this means is they don't want you to worry about financial aid and the fact that you can afford going to school there. All they want you to worry about is actually getting in. Because it's so competitive, it's at a 4.59% acceptance rate. If you can get into Harvard and the only thing stopping you is money, they will take care of it. It's as simple as that. More than 55% of students that attend Harvard have financial aid in some way or another, so that's not something that you should be worrying about. They don't have any special applications. It's basically once you clear and actually get admission, get that acceptance letter, they will take care of you in the finance side of things. Now, if you guys want to know more about just the general application process, how much money you'll end up spending in terms of things outside of the tuition fee, like your living expenses, your books, and other miscellaneous things, you can check out incognitoblueprints.com. There's a free resources section on the website that takes you through the entire process. It's extremely clear there, so definitely check that out. Now, on the other hand, for the IITs, you have about a 5 to 10 lakh rupees per year tuition fee, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but that roughly adds up to anywhere between 30 to 40 lakh rupees, which is, a ballpark of 50,000 US dollars. Now, it is important to consider that the cost of living in India is going to be significantly less than the cost of living at Harvard, which is in the US, just because of the economy and this, the situation that we're in right now. But the benefits that you do have to an education with the degree that you're planning to do in the US, you may be exposed to more opportunities in terms of maybe internships, co-op positions, networking, making those relations, of course, having that Ivy League brand name behind you and carry that with you for the rest of your life. So to answer the biggest question, which is which one is better, Harvard or IIT? Now, this is just my personal opinion, so don't come at me. But I personally think that if you have prepared for the IIT exam and you do get selected, you shouldn't turn that opportunity down. You should say yes. One, because the IITs are one of the best institutions in India. You've gotten in and you're basically one among those 0.5% students that cleared that exam. And two, you'll be saving a ton of money just by studying in your home country, and you get a good quality education. You can potentially explore Harvard or any other, maybe US based university for a master's or a PhD degree later on in your career, and keep that as an option. Now, that's all that I had for this video. Let me know what you guys think after listening to all of these comparisons. Like, which side are you on, IIT or Harvard? Let me know in the comments below. But like the video if you're watching till this point, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.